Hey everyone! You're listening to the English Connect podcast, your home for learning English through real-life conversations. I am your host, Sophia, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Jason.
Hey, Sophia. Hey, everyone. Great to be here with you all today.
Jason, how's your week been? Anything interesting happen?
Actually, yes. Something small but kind of significant. I wore this bright orange jacket to a work meeting yesterday, and honestly, old me would have never done that.
Wait, why not? Orange sounds fun.
Well, it's pretty bold, you know? And I used to worry so much about what my colleagues would think. Is it too casual, too loud? Will they take me less seriously?
And what happened?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. A couple people said they liked it, most people didn't comment at all, and the meeting went perfectly normal. I realized I'd been creating this whole drama in my head that didn't exist in reality.
That is so relatable, Jason. And it actually ties in perfectly with what we're talking about today.
It really does. So what's our topic?
Today, we're diving into something that affects almost everyone: how to stop caring so much about what other people think. And I say so much because caring a little bit is normal and human, but when it controls your life, that's a problem.
This is such an important conversation because I think people-pleasing and worrying about others' opinions holds so many of us back from being authentic and pursuing what we really want.
Exactly. So here's what we have lined up for you. First, we're going to have a deep, honest conversation about why we care so much about others' opinions, the cost of living for external validation, and practical strategies to break free from that trap.
Then we'll break down 5 super useful vocabulary words and phrases to help expand your English.
And finally, we'll end with a challenge that will push you to practice caring less about what people think in your own life.
But before we dive in, if you're enjoying this podcast, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes.
And here's what I want to know from you. Comment below and tell us what's one thing you would do if you completely stopped worrying about what people think. Change your style, speak up more, pursue a different career? We want to hear from you.
All right, let's get into this conversation.
So, Jason, your orange jacket story is a perfect example. But let's start with the big question. Why do we care so much about what people think in the first place?
Well, I think part of it is evolutionary, right? Humans are social creatures. Thousands of years ago, being rejected by your tribe could literally mean death. We're wired to want to belong.
That's true. There's definitely a biological component. Our brains are hardwired to care about social acceptance because it kept our ancestors alive.
Right, but the problem is that our modern brains are still running ancient software. We're not going to die if someone doesn't like our outfit or disagrees with our opinion, but our nervous system doesn't know that.
Exactly. We're treating everyday social interactions like survival situations, which is exhausting and unnecessary.
So true. What other reasons do you think contribute to this?
Well, I think a lot of it comes from how we were raised. Many of us grew up in environments where love and approval felt conditional, like we had to be a certain way to be accepted.
Oh, that's deep. Can you explain more?
Sure. Think about childhood messages like, "Don't embarrass the family," or "What will the neighbors think?" Or even subtle things like only getting praise when you achieved something or behaved a certain way.
I definitely got those messages growing up. And even if parents meant well, it created the sense that my worth depended on external validation.
Exactly. And then social media has taken this to a whole new level, hasn't it?
Oh my goodness, yes. Now we have real-time metrics of approval in the form of likes, comments, and followers. It's like we've gamified human validation.
Right. And the comparison trap is constant. You're not just comparing yourself to people you know, you're comparing yourself to millions of carefully curated highlight reels.
Which is completely unrealistic, but our brains don't process it that way. We just see people looking perfect, living perfect lives, and feel like we're failing.
And that drives us to care even more about what people think, because we're constantly measuring ourselves against impossible standards.
So we're dealing with evolutionary wiring, childhood conditioning, and modern technology, all conspiring to make us obsessed with others' opinions.
Pretty much. No wonder so many people struggle with this.
So let's talk about the cost. What does it actually cost us when we live our lives according to what other people think?
Oh, the cost is huge, Jason. First and most obviously, you lose your authenticity. You become a performer rather than a person.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when you're constantly adjusting your behavior, opinions, and even personality based on who you're with and what you think they want to see, you lose touch with who you actually are.
That's sad when you put it that way. It's like you're playing a character in your own life instead of being yourself.
Exactly. And after a while, you might not even know who the real you is anymore because you've been performing for so long.
I think that's what happened to me for years, honestly. I became really good at reading rooms and being what people wanted, but I felt empty inside.
That emptiness is real, Jason, because external validation is like junk food. It gives you a quick hit, but it never actually nourishes you.
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. Let's say you post something on social media and get 100 likes. You feel good for a moment, right?
Sure, there's a little dopamine rush.
But how long does that good feeling last? An hour? A day? And then you need another hit. You need more validation to feel okay again.
So it's like you're constantly chasing something that can never actually satisfy you.
Exactly, because you're looking outside yourself for something that can only come from within, a sense of self-worth and self-acceptance.
Wow, that's powerful. What other costs are there?
Well, there's opportunity cost. How many chances have you missed because you were too worried about what people would think?
Oh man, so many. I can think of job opportunities I didn't pursue, creative projects I didn't start, relationships I didn't pursue, opinions I didn't share.
Exactly. When you let fear of judgment control you, you don't take risks, and life without risk is life without growth.
That's a great point. All the best things in my life have come from taking risks that scared me.
Same here. And you know what else you lose? Genuine relationships.
How so?
Well, if people don't know the real you because you're always performing or people-pleasing, then they're not really connected to you. They're connected to the version of you that you think they want to see.
So even if people like you, it doesn't feel good because you know they don't actually know the real you.
Exactly. It's lonely even when you're surrounded by people. True connection requires vulnerability and authenticity.
I've experienced that. Some of my deepest friendships started when I stopped trying to be perfect and just showed up as my messy, real self.
And people actually appreciate that more than perfection because it gives them permission to be real too.
So true. All right, so we've established why we care and what it costs us, but the big question is, how do we actually stop caring so much?
That's the million-dollar question. And I want to be clear, we're not talking about becoming selfish or inconsiderate. We're talking about caring less about judgment and more about staying true to yourself.
Important distinction. So where do we start?
I think the first step is awareness. You need to catch yourself in the act of people-pleasing or worrying about judgment.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say you're in a meeting and someone says something you disagree with. Notice if your first instinct is to stay quiet to avoid conflict, or if you modify your opinion to match the majority.
So it's about becoming conscious of those moments when you're betraying yourself to please others.
Exactly. You can't change a pattern you're not aware of. So step one is just noticing without judgment when you're doing this.
Okay, and what's step 2?
Step 2 is to question your assumptions. We often have these catastrophic predictions about what will happen if people don't approve of us, but are they actually true?
Like with my orange jacket, I was sure people would judge me, but they didn't.
Right. Most of the drama is in our heads. So when you catch yourself worrying, ask, what's the worst that realistically could happen? And could I handle that?
And usually the answer is that the worst case isn't that bad, and yes, you could handle it.
Exactly. We're much more resilient than we give ourselves credit for.
What else helps?
I think developing a strong sense of your own values is crucial. When you know what you stand for and what matters to you, other people's opinions become less important.
Because you have your own internal compass instead of constantly looking outside yourself for.
Sure. Happy, secure people don't spend their time criticizing others. If someone is constantly judging or criticizing, it's usually because they're projecting their own fears and insecurities onto you.
So we shouldn't take it personally.
Exactly. Hurt people hurt people. Secure people lift people.
Wow, that really shifts the perspective. What other strategies do you think help?
I think practicing small acts of courage is huge. You can't just wake up one day and suddenly not care what anyone thinks. It's a muscle you build gradually.
What do small acts of courage look like?
It could be wearing something outside your usual style, like your orange jacket, or sharing an unpopular opinion, or saying no to something you don't want to do, or posting something on social media without filtering it to death first.
So it's about gradually expanding your comfort zone?
Yes, and each time you do something brave and survive, and you will survive, you build evidence that other people's opinions can't actually hurt you.
I like that approach because it's manageable. You're not trying to change everything overnight.
Right. And another helpful practice is spending less time in comparison mode, especially on social media.
Oh, that's a big one. Social media can be so toxic for this.
It really can be. And here's the thing, you don't have to quit social media entirely, but maybe limit your time. Curate your feed to show content that inspires rather than depresses you. And remind yourself that everything you see is curated.
And remember that people usually share their highlights, not their struggles.
Exactly. Everyone's life looks better from the outside. If you could peek behind the curtain, you'd see that everyone is dealing with something.
So true. What about when you do receive actual criticism or negative feedback? How do you handle that without caring too much?
Great question. I think you need to distinguish between constructive feedback and destructive criticism.
What's the difference?
Constructive feedback is specific, comes from someone who cares about your growth, and is about behavior or actions you can improve. Destructive criticism is vague, comes from someone invested in tearing you down, and often attacks your character or worth as a person.
So you should be open to constructive feedback but dismiss destructive criticism?
Exactly. If my boss gives me specific feedback about a project, that's valuable information I can use. If a random person says, "You're stupid," that's not feedback. That's their own stuff, and I can let it go.
That's such a useful framework, and it means you're not being defensive and closed off to all feedback, but you're also not letting every criticism destroy you.
Right. It's about discernment, not defensiveness.
I love that distinction. You know, one thing I've noticed is that the more I've learned to care less about others' opinions, the more confident and happy I've become.
Tell me more about that.
Well, when I was constantly seeking approval, I felt anxious and insecure all the time. But now that I'm more focused on my own values and being authentic, I feel so much more grounded and peaceful.
That makes sense because you're not at the mercy of external circumstances anymore. Your sense of self isn't dependent on what other people say or do.
Exactly. And ironically, people seem to respect me more now than when I was trying so hard to please everyone.
Oh, that's fascinating. Why do you think that is?
I think because confidence and authenticity are attractive qualities. When you're secure in yourself and not desperately seeking validation, people are drawn to that energy.
That's so true. People can sense when you're being genuine versus when you're performing, and they trust and respect genuine more.
Right. So in trying to please everyone, you actually end up pleasing no one because you come across as inauthentic.
And when you stop trying to please everyone and just focus on being yourself, you naturally attract people who appreciate the real you.
Which leads to much better relationships.
Absolutely. You know, Jason, I think we should also address a common fear. If I stop caring what people think, will I become selfish or mean?
Oh, that's such an important concern. What would you say to that?
I'd say there's a huge difference between not caring about judgment and not caring about impact. You can stop worrying about whether people like you while still being kind and considerate.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say you need to have a difficult conversation with someone. Caring about what they think would mean avoiding the conversation to keep them happy. Not caring about their judgment means having the conversation authentically, even if it's uncomfortable, but still doing it with kindness and respect.
So it's about being honest and true to yourself while still being compassionate.
Exactly. You can set boundaries, speak your truth, and live authentically without being cruel or dismissive of others.
That's really important to clarify because I think some people use "I don't care what anyone thinks" as an excuse to be inconsiderate.
Right, that's not what we're advocating for at all. We're talking about internal freedom, not external rudeness.
Well said. You know, another thing that's helped me is remembering that everyone is so focused on themselves that they're not thinking about me as much as I think they are.
Oh my gosh, yes, this is so true and so freeing.
Right? We overestimate how much people notice or care about our choices. Everyone is the main character in their own story, not yours.
Exactly. You think people are analyzing everything you do, but in reality, they're worried about their own lives, their own problems, their own appearance.
And even if someone does judge you or have a negative thought, it's usually fleeting. They're not sitting around thinking about it for days like you might worry they are.
So true. I remember reading something that said, you'll stop worrying what people think about you when you realize how seldom they do.
That's perfect, and kind of humbling, actually. Our ego wants to think we're always on everyone's mind, but we're just not that important to most people.
Right, and that's actually liberating, not insulting. It means you're free to be yourself, because most people aren't paying that much attention anyway.
Exactly, and the people who do care deeply about you will love you for who you are, not who you pretend to be.
Beautifully said. I think one last thing worth mentioning is that this is an ongoing practice, not a destination.
What do you mean?
Well, you don't just wake up one day and completely stop caring what anyone thinks. You still have moments of insecurity or people-pleasing, and that's okay.
So it's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. The goal is to gradually care less, to catch yourself more quickly when you're doing it, and to choose authenticity more often. But you're still human.
That's reassuring. I think people sometimes feel like failures if they have a moment of insecurity, but that's just part of being human.
Right. Be patient and compassionate with yourself. This is a journey, and every small step counts.
I love that. You know, Sophia, I think this conversation has been really eye-opening.
Me too. I hope everyone listening feels empowered to start caring a little less about judgment and a lot more about being authentically themselves.
Because at the end of the day, the relationship you have with yourself is the most important one. And you can't have a good relationship with yourself if you're constantly betraying who you are to please others.
That's profound, Jason. And it's true. The only opinion of you that truly matters is your own.
Well said.
All right, everyone. Now let's break down 5 useful words and phrases from today's conversation.
First up, we have people-pleasing.
Meaning, people-pleasing is the habit of constantly trying to make others happy or gain their approval, often at the expense of your own needs, wants, or authenticity. It's when you prioritize what others think over what you truly feel or believe.
Example sentence. Her people-pleasing behavior left her exhausted because she said yes to everything, even when she wanted to say no.
Number 2 is external validation.
Meaning, external validation is seeking approval, acceptance, or recognition from other people rather than from yourself. It's when your sense of worth or confidence depends on what others think, say, or do.
Example sentence. He was addicted to external validation, constantly checking social media for likes to feel good about himself.
Our third phrase is at the expense of.
Meaning, this phrase means sacrificing something or causing harm to something in order to gain something else. It indicates that one thing is being damaged or given up for another thing.
Example sentence. She achieved career success at the expense of her personal relationships and health.
Number 4 is truth bomb.
Meaning, A truth bomb is a surprising or powerful statement that reveals an important or uncomfortable truth that people need to hear. It's usually something honest and direct that makes people think differently.
Example sentence. He dropped a truth bomb when he told his friend, "You keep complaining about your job, but you're not applying anywhere else."
And finally, number 5 is at the mercy of.
Meaning, this phrase means to be completely dependent on or controlled by something or someone, usually with no power to change the situation. You're vulnerable to whatever that thing or person decides or does.
Example sentence. When you base your happiness on others' opinions, you're at the mercy of their ever-changing judgments.
Jason, this has been such a powerful conversation. I feel lighter just talking about this.
Me too, Sophia, and I'm definitely wearing more colorful jackets from now on.
As you should. Now, before we wrap up, we have a challenge for you, our amazing listeners.
Here it is. We want you to do one thing this week that you've been avoiding because you were worried about what people might think.
It can be anything. Maybe it's expressing an unpopular opinion, wearing something bold, posting something unfiltered on social media, saying no to something you don't want to do, or speaking up in a meeting. The point is to practice courage in a small way and see what happens. We bet you'll discover that nothing terrible occurs, and you'll actually feel more free.
And then come back to the comments and tell us what you did and how it felt. We want to celebrate your courage with you.
We'll be reading all your comments, and honestly, seeing people take these steps inspires us too.
And remember, if you enjoyed this episode, please hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that their opinion of themselves matters most.
Your support helps us reach more people and create